The smell of a hospital parking lot at 3 in the morning is something a man doesn't forget. Wet asphalt, diesel exhaust, rainwater sitting in the cracks of broken pavement, and underneath it all, that sharp, sterile trace of antiseptic that seems to cling to everyone coming through those automatic doors. Nurses, orderlies, worried husbands, people carrying flowers, people carrying bad news, people carrying the kind of exhaustion that changes their face. To most people, it's just a place between one thing and another. To me, it was the place where I finally understood my marriage had been dead long before I was ready to bury it. My name is Ray Thorne. I was 45 when everything broke open. I've spent most of my adult life in cybersecurity. My job is simple to explain and miserable to live inside if you do it long enough. I look for weakness, weak passwords, bad habits, open doors people forgot to lock. I find the small mistakes before somebody smarter and meaner finds them first. You do that kind of work long enough, and it changes how you see the world. You stop believing in coincidences. My father was a welder in the shipyards. Big forearms, quiet man. Smelled like metal and sweat and burnt steel. He used to tell me rust never arrives all at once. It starts small. A pinhole, a stain, a little softness around the edge. Ignore it long enough, and one day you don't have a pipe anymore. You have a flood. That stayed with me. I built my life around that idea. Be solid. Be dependable. Be the man things rest on. And for a long time, I thought that's what I was doing with Tina. She was 38, a nurse. And when we first got together, she had this energy that made every room feel warmer. She laughed easily, touched your arm when she talked, made strangers feel seen. She was the human part of my life, the soft part, the reason the house didn't just feel like a place where bills got paid and doors got locked. At least, that's who she used to be. Somewhere along the way, the warmth changed. Not all at once. That would have been easier. It started the way rot usually starts, quietly. A Tuesday. I remember it because I'd come home early, which almost never happened. I'd wrapped a call ahead of schedule, picked up takeout from that Thai place she liked, and drove home actually looking forward to surprising my wife. That should tell you how bad things were already getting without me admitting it. When a man starts treating dinner at home like a chance to recover something, he already knows he's losing it. She was in the kitchen with her back to me, changing out her lunch bag before heading in for a shift. I set the food on the counter, stepped in close, and put a hand lightly on her waist. She flinched, not just startled, not just distracted. Her whole body tightened like my touch had come from the wrong person. "You okay?" I asked. She kept facing the counter. Long day ahead. "I'm tired," that was it. No turn, no smile, no little apology, just a flat answer, and a wall where my wife used to be. That should have been a small moment. It was, because once you feel that kind of recoil from someone who's supposed to know your hands better than anyone, you start noticing everything else. The house got quieter after that. Not peaceful, not calm, just hollow. Tina stopped asking about my day, stopped leaving little notes on the counter, stopped touching me in passing. We still moved around each other, still handled schedules, groceries, laundry, life. But it felt like being partnered with someone who was already halfway out the door and trying not to make noise while they packed. There's a kind of loneliness that only married men understand. It's not being alone. It's being in your own house with somebody who no longer looks relieved when you walk in. I kept trying to explain it away. Nursing shifts, stress, burnout, hormones, family stuff, anything but the truth. Then came the recycling bin. It was a Thursday morning. Gray sky, light rain. I was taking the trash out before work because I'd gotten into the habit of doing small things early, as if being useful enough might somehow pull her back toward me. The kitchen recycling was too full, so I pressed down with one hand to make room. That's when I heard something shift inside an empty plastic milk jug. A dry little rattle. I almost ignored it, but something about the sound bothered me. I picked up the container, unscrewed the cap, and looked inside. There was a used condom wrapper tucked down in it. I just stood there in the driveway holding that bottle like an idiot. Cold rain hitting the back of my neck. The trash can open. Neighbors, dogs barking somewhere down the street. My whole life getting rearranged by a piece of foil in a milk jug. I didn't yell, didn't throw anything, didn't march back inside demanding answers. Men imagine they'll explode when that moment comes. Maybe some do, but when the truth hits hard enough, sometimes it doesn't feel like fire. It feels like ice. I put the container back exactly where I found it, went inside, grabbed my laptop bag, and told Tina I had an emergency at work. Remote site issue. Weekend problem. I said I had to leave immediately and might be gone longer than expected. She looked at me for half a second too long. Then she nodded. "Okay," she said. "Be careful." That was the moment I knew. Not because she looked guilty, because she looked relieved. I drove out of the neighborhood, made 2 turns, looped back, and parked my truck 2 streets over behind a line of cedar trees, where I could still see our driveway through the branches. Then I waited. 10 minutes after I officially left, Marcus pulled in. My brother, my older brother by 2 years. The same man I grew up with. The same man who bloodied kids for picking on me when we were younger. The same man who stood next to me at my wedding, hand on my shoulder, telling me I'd found a good one. He got out of his truck like it was any other Thursday. No hesitation, no nerves, no glance around to make sure the street was clear. He walked straight to my front door and let himself in like he lived there. That image still lives in me, not because it was dramatic, because of how normal it looked. That's the part that twists the knife. Betrayal isn't always chaotic. Sometimes it's casual, familiar, comfortable. I sat there in the dark of my truck, both hands locked on the steering wheel so hard my fingers went numb. I wanted to go through that front door like a sledgehammer. I wanted to drag him back out by the collar and ask him if my name had ever crossed his mind while he was in my house, with my wife, drinking my coffee, using my bathroom, touching what was mine. But I didn't move. That's the difference between rage and control. Rage makes noise. Control gets results. So I stayed put and watched. I saw them pass the kitchen window once, close together, laughing. I saw her uncork a bottle of wine I had bought for our anniversary dinner 2 weeks earlier. The dinner she'd been too exhausted to enjoy. I saw my brother throw his head back laughing at something she said, and then I saw her do the same. That laughter hit harder than the condom wrapper, because men can survive a lot. What breaks them is realizing another man is getting the version of her they kept asking for, and being told no longer existed. I don't know how long I sat there after that. Long enough for the truck cab to go cold. Long enough for anger to settle into something heavier and more useful. When I finally drove away, I wasn't confused anymore. Hope was gone, and once hope is gone, a man can finally get honest. Over the next few days, I stopped guessing and started confirming. I checked the family phone records, looked at shared device logins she had forgotten to disconnect, found messages on an old sync tablet in the home office she must have assumed I never used. Not explicit, not cinematic, just enough. Shift changes that didn't line up. Deleted threads. Hotel plans buried under fake errands. The sort of sloppy arrogance people fall into when they've been getting away with something long enough to believe they deserve it. And maybe the ugliest part of all was this. It hadn't just happened. It had been going on for months. Months of dinners, holidays, family barbecues, my brother shaking my hand, Tina kissing me goodbye before work, both of them standing in front of me acting like I was too dull, too trusting, too blind to notice I was the punchline. That's the kind of humiliation a man doesn't forget. I didn't confront them at the house. I didn't want neighbors, didn't want shouting, didn't want police body language, and half the street watching from behind curtains. I wanted it cleaned. Her next late shift ended at 3 a.m. on a Saturday. I got to the hospital parking garage 20 minutes early and waited near a concrete support column where the yellow overhead lights made everything look tired and sick. The kind of light that strips people down to what they really are. My heart wasn't racing by then. That part was over. What I felt was something colder. Clarity. When Tina came out through the sliding doors, Marcus was with her. He wasn't supposed to be there. Dee told me one of the other nurses was giving her a ride home because she was too tired to drive. Instead, there he was walking beside her, one hand low on her back like he had earned the right. They were smiling. She said something to him, and he laughed. Then I stepped out from behind the pillar. The look on her face when she saw me was immediate. Not confusion, recognition, like some part of her had known this day was coming and had simply hoped to outrun it. Marcus stopped walking. Nobody spoke for a second. You hear strange things in moments like that. The hum of fluorescent lights, a car alarm beeping in the distance, the squeak of hospital doors opening and closing behind people whose pain has nothing to do with yours. I held a manila folder in my hand, not because I needed to prove anything to myself, because I wanted them to understand this wasn't suspicion. It was conclusion. Inside were screenshots, timestamps, records, photos of his truck in my driveway, copies of messages, enough to end every lie before it started. I handed it to her. Her fingers shook taking it. "Ray, don't," I said. That was the first word I'd spoken. Marcus stepped forward, trying on that older brother voice like it still meant something. "Listen, man, it's not." I turned and looked at him. Not shouted, not threatened, just looked. He shut up. That was the moment I saw it plainly. Men like Marcus count on momentum. They count on charm, confusion, people backing down to preserve the room. Strip that away, and there's usually not much underneath. Tina started crying. Fast tears, hot tears, the kind that come when someone knows the performance is over. She said it wasn't planned, said they didn't mean for it to happen, said they had both been in bad places, said I had been distant, busy, hard to reach. She said it like loneliness was some kind of group project the three of us had accidentally built together. I let her talk until she ran out. Then I told her the truth. "You didn't just cheat on me," I said. "You turned me into the safest man in the room to betray." Neither of them said anything, so I kept going. To my face, both of you. In my house, at family dinners, holidays, birthdays. You didn't slip. You built this. Marcus looked down. Tina cried harder, and maybe that makes me sound cruel. But by then I was past protecting their feelings. Men spend too many years swallowing their own humiliation. just to avoid looking harsh when they finally tell the truth. I told Tina I'd already spoken to an attorney, told Marcus if he ever stepped foot on my property again, I'd treat him like any other trespasser, told both of them that whatever they thought they had found in each other, they were free to test it without using my name, my home, or my patience as the foundation. Then I walked away. No shouting, no threats, no last look back, just the sound of my own boots on concrete and the feeling, for the first time in months, that I wasn't carrying their lie anymore. The divorce was ugly in all the boring ways people never talk about. Paperwork, accounts, signatures, quiet legal language cutting apart the life you once thought would bury you old and side by side. My family blew apart with it. My mother cried. My uncle tried to mediate. One cousin told me blood should matter more than a woman. Another said I should keep things private. That's what people always say when they aren't the ones being carved open. Marcus stopped calling once he realized there was no road back. Tina tried once. 3 weeks later, she showed up at the house just after dark. I saw her through the window before she knocked. She stood on the porch crying, shoulders shaking, saying she'd made a mistake, saying she loved me, saying she didn't know how things got so far. I stood on the other side of the door and listened, and for a second, I'll admit it, part of me wanted to open it. Not because I believed her, because losing a life is still losing a life, even when you know it needed to end. But I didn't open the door, because somewhere between the recycling bin and that hospital garage, I had finally remembered something men are trained to forget. Love is not the same thing as permission. Patience is not the same thing as weakness. And being a good man does not require standing still, while people you trusted take turns humiliating you. So I let her cry. I let her say everything. And when she realized the door was staying shut, she left. That was the real ending. Not the hospital, not the divorce papers. The sound of her footsteps walking off my porch with no part of me following. A few months later, I moved into a smaller house across town. No history in the walls, no memories in the kitchen. No brother had ever sat at that table. No wife had ever looked me in the eyes there and lied. The first few weeks were rough. I'm not going to dress that up. There were nights the quiet felt so big it made the place sound unfinished. I ate takeout over the sink, slept on a mattress before the bed frame arrived, stared at unpacked boxes, and wondered whether starting over at 45 was strength or just another word for failure. But then the tension started leaving my body. Little by little, I stopped checking my phone with dread in my gut, stopped listening for lies, stopped feeling that constant pressure in my chest that had become so normal I forgot what life felt like without it. I started sleeping through the night again. That mattered more than I can explain. A year later, I met Lara. Nothing dramatic, no movie moment, just a woman who meant what she said and said what she meant. Being around her felt restful, which was how I knew it was real. No games, no guessing, no second life hidden behind another face. Just peace, and maybe that's what I learned. For years, I thought being a man meant carrying everything quietly, providing, enduring, taking the hit and keeping the roof on. There is honor in being dependable. There is no honor in volunteering to be disrespected. I didn't walk away because I stopped loving Tina in one clean, simple moment. I walked away because love without trust rots. And once it rots, it poisons everything around it if you keep pretending it's still good. So I chose dignity. Late maybe, but not too late. And looking back now, that wasn't the collapse of my life. That was the night I finally stopped protecting a lie just because I was afraid to lose what had been built around it. That was the night I remembered I still had a backbone.